Can everyone hear me? Oh, that's much better. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session. I'm going to shortly introduce someone that needs very limited introduction in the watch industry world, someone that I know many of you know very well. And we're going to spend about 45 minutes talking about various issues and topics. And so without further ado, I'm going to welcome onto the stage François-Henri Benama. Thanks very much for joining us, François-Henri.
I like the way you put up. Yes, no, yes. I like the. What's my name again? Just say my name again. What's my last name?
Are you going to now accuse me of mispronouncing your name?
What's my name again? Say me.
François-Henri Benami.
Yes. Good.
Was that?
No, we're good.
I do speak fluent French, but I'm sorry if I've butchered your name.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, welcome to the stage in any event. I know that many of you know exactly who François-Henri is, and his tenure, very well-known tenure at Audemars Piguet. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Perfect.
Good. So François-Henri was global CEO of AP for 10 years, before which he was also working for a number of other big luxury brands as well, and in fact started his career as a professional golfer in the top 25 in France, which is an impressive way to start off.
Not really, but okay.
Okay, and I think you're going to touch on some of that a little bit later in our conversation. Since stepping down as head of Audemars Piguet, François-Henri has now moved on to found an organization called the Honorable Merchants Group, which offers a new vantage with a broad and independent perspective on the future of luxury and brand building, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I think importantly, few leaders in the watch industry possess that kind of that dual perspective of decades of operational leadership and now the freedom to do lots of other things within a sector that you know so well. So to jump straight into it now that you have stepped away from the day-to-day pressures of running a very large and well-known and respected watch brand like Audemars Piguet, you kind of now look at the industry from a much wider perspective. How do you interpret we find ourselves now in this very uniquely volatile period of massive geopolitical change and all sorts of challenges? How do you interpret this perspective that the luxury landscape now finds itself in?
Hi, good evening, everyone. First of all, I love when things get a little bit difficult, because when things are very easy, if you talk about the years 2021 and 22, especially for the watch world, it was an absolute dream come true. Every brand was succeeding to levels untapped before, and we went back to earth at the end of 22, beginning of 23, and now it's getting more complicated, but when it's more complicated, that you can actually make real differences, especially if you look at business from different perspective and with a different attitude.
Okay.
You want me to show you live with someone right now? Look.
This is where I get nervous.
Come here. Okay. Do you do?
My name is also François.
Okay, but you're François from a different country.
From the Netherlands.
Netherlands. But François. François. Okay, quick thing. Do you do a combat sport? No? Do you know how to do boxing, roughly? That's cute. Let's take a boxing stand in front of me for 1 second. So like this. Good, like this. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Here. Now I'm going to say one word, just one word, and move. You have to move on that word. Do whatever you want. You ready? You have to move, okay? Protect. Okay? Another one. Victory. Okay, thank you, François. Let me explain. In a tough environment, we always want to protect what we know. But when you protect what you know, you do one thing. You see what he did? He went backward and closed his face. And that's what's happening right now pretty much in the world, because you go back to what you know best, and what you know best is going backward. Victory, he opened himself, he opened his arms. And I think the world should be more about looking further than looking backward with the old system and the old regime. We have to look at business differently to this world, and that human nature of going backward has to be challenged a lot.
And do you think that is what is happening at the moment? Do you think that the watch industry is responding to all this volatility by retreating into areas that in which it feels safe and familiar?
First of all, not the watch industry, the world is behaving like this. Look at the luxury world, especially in what's going on. But not all watch companies or not all fashion houses or jewelry houses. Some of them are looking as well forward. It's not everyone, but the majority of the world right now is on standby mode, waiting for things to get better and eventually grow again or go back to growth. But it's when it's time now, when it's difficult, that you have to really open your arms and embrace what could come tomorrow. You've got 4 people in the front row here, actually 5. These people are working I've been working for the NASA, SpaceX, all those type of things. These people speak a language that you and I would never understand. Now, you have 2 options when you sit down with those people. Either you open your mind and your eyes to possibilities, or you shoot yourself because you don't understand the word that they're describing about what the world could become. Which is why I love them, and I work with them.
We're going to come on to that a little bit more in a second as well. Now you have this new perspective, again, this freedom of coming out and being able to do your own thing in the watch industry and potentially much more broadly as well. Do you think focusing on that instability, focusing on all of the things that are happening, as you say, not just to the watch industry, but to all industries all over the world, do you think that there is an opportunity, and do you think the watch industry is capable of unlocking bolder creativity and new forms of value from that instability?
Absolutely, and for many reasons. One, it's not the first time that the world goes into a crisis period.
Yep.
And especially the watch industry, which for some brands have been in business for close to 200 years, have experienced multiple crises through history. So it's not the first time, it's not the last time. Go with the flow. We're going to come out of it eventually. 2, there is a youth that came into the watch world in 2014 that no one could have bet on. You have to understand, when the Apple Watch came out in 2014, the entire world of journalists, okay, if there are journalists in the room right now, they're going to remember, came to us, the watch companies, say, you guys are dead. You're going to go back to the 70s, the quartz period, where basically the quartz era almost killed the watchmaking industry. And when the smartwatches came out, so we say the young people will either never wear watches again or will wear only smartwatches. And out of nowhere, they arrived in our world unannounced. No one, no CEO from that time could say, oh, I prepared that arrival of youth. And they came and became the best ambassadors possible of the watch industry. And today, whether they are watchmakers, they work in marketing, sales, in the world of watchmaking, they are the one helping us, the older ones, shaping the future.
Yeah.
There is one guy here in the room. You see the guy with the cap reversed, Austin? We met the first time. How old were you, Austin? The first time? He was 19.
Austin, stand up for us so everyone can say
Now he's
hi.
45, but okay. So, wait. So Austin was 19 when we met the first time. He came to my office, comes with a little bit of money, we can say this, okay? And that they spend money on a very expensive Audemars Piguet watch. Funny enough, can I share what you did to me? After the meeting, because we sent him back to his hotel with the driver, he sent me a text. And on that text, you know what he wrote to me? Are we saying this? We're saying this. Fuck you. Okay, you made me spend so much more money than I was expecting, but I love you, François. That was my first interaction because he spent some serious money. And we've been friends since. And it's by spending time with people like Austin and many others that we have to look at the business from a completely different angle.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that has happened to so many other industries. With us in movies, Netflix was the same. We had a similar situation, which essentially put an atomic bomb underneath Hollywood as we knew it. It has changed everything. So I think it's happened to the watch industry, and I'm sure will happen again, more on a wider context as well with generative AI. Everybody's, again, waiting to see what that's going to do to it, and and poised for another huge period of change, and ultimately, which is a healthy thing, right? That things adapt and move sometimes quite significantly and very quickly. You have certainly been an ambassador for injecting change into the watch industry and have been part of a number of very high-profile things that you have done to try and re-energize the Audemars Piguet brand and move things on. Not only just for younger customers, but also to younger talent within the watch industry, which you've just touched on now, and cross-disciplinary expertise. So, again, now that you're in this another entrepreneurial phase of your career, how essential is it to you to bring new blood and skill sets into watchmaking so that you can really, truly connect with younger audiences that are going to propel the industry forward?
Extremely important for one reason. I'm 61 years old. How many people in the room are over 50? Raise your hand for a second. Okay. So the way we've been raised, okay, there were only 2.5 ways for us to learn as kids. With our parents, and with our teachers, and what I call the half would be books. There was no computers, no cell phone, no social media, nothing. And we learned through these two sources of it, and we got educated that way. The young generation is looking at screens since they are 2.5 to 3 years old. And the way they are learning and getting information is a complete different way. Today, I've got 2 daughters. One is 30 years old, the second one is 13 years old, and they teach me things every single day. And we have to accept once and for all that this world has shifted, where it's not age that's going to give you the absolute answer to all your questions. It's the best of both worlds. You need experience, so you still need people in their 50s and 60s and 70s to teach you, obviously on experience, but also you need this youth that doesn't think like us, doesn't act like us, doesn't behave like us, to open our minds and our hearts to a different way of working. It's like learning a new language. And if we discard them and say they're entitled, they cannot commit, they always want to travel, they are not this, we don't know. Our generation bashes too often this young generation. I think the exact other way. No matter what, they're here to stay. We got to die before them. Okay? So if we don't embrace what they are bringing, then we're in trouble.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I think, again, on a wider level as well, younger people, and in some cases also children as well, often think expansively. They think openly because they don't necessarily know what the rules and conventions are. Whereas as older people, we become very focused on the rules and conventions, and it can make our thinking reductive. Because also we worry so much more about what other people were going to think about our ideas before we come out with them. And I think trying to look at younger people who have that more expansive thinking is obviously is a very healthy thing.
I think it's also because we might be afraid to lose.
Yeah.
But when you think about it philosophically, if you're afraid to lose something, you're going to lose it no matter what.
Yeah.
It's funny enough. In sports, if you go into a field where you think you might actually lose a game, a fight, anything, you're done before you even enter the field. You're done. Mentally speaking, you have to program yourself to mean that I'm going to go for a victory or something good no matter what. The more you say, I might lose, or I need a plan B or a plan C, all those type of things, you are setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just like you were saying here, be on the front foot, not the back foot.
Even though the victory, you still went backward, François, huh? On the victory. Forward.
And you did what any of us would have done. Next question, François-Henri. So you have been someone who has really been an ambassador for warning about the dangers of the watch industry being sometimes a little bit closed. You now also have this new phase in your career where you're able to kind of look at things with a lot more freedom. Do you think that the watch industry has opened its gates, or do you think it is still at risk of becoming a beautifully crafted, but still a beautifully crafted echo chamber of looking within itself?
No, because I said before, there are some people working in some companies who are opening their minds to what could come next. And if I make an analogy with the world of sports, and I've met through my career a lot of major athletes, and I've always loved with them the behind the scene, what we'll never know, what will never be known publicly, especially when they get hurt. Because the rebuilding of their shape, of their health is insane. And they go to level of uncomfort, which are mind-blowing. And especially in today's world, and even more so when it's tough, we want to feel comfortable. The normal reaction is, I'm going in a world which I know, I'm in control. You have to accept to lose a certain part of the control and go to places where you're going to be very uncomfortable to build a new way of thinking and acting. And that's tough because it's painful. You doubt a lot. You question yourself. You don't see results, sometimes for a long, long time, and eventually it comes. It's not a perfect science, it's not a guarantee, but every single one of them at some point goes to that uncomfortable place to be able to come back better.
Yeah.
Always.
And I think as human beings, we are creatures of habit. We like things that work. We try things, and when something works, we tend to go back to it again. And if we innovate or adapt, we tend to tweak around the edges because we like to go back to things that work. We like what our bosses like, we like what our customers like, we like what our colleagues like, and so we go back to it again, which can sometimes, after a while, it works, but if you do it for too long, then it obviously becomes more dangerous. And I think we have an expression in film that we like to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because that is a clear sign that you've left what I used to call the train tracks of thought, where you just stay on the same train track of thinking to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's not an easy process, is it? You know,
no, but it's funny
like
because
habit.
People who know me say that I'm a big Yoda fan, and Yoda said in The Empire Strikes Back, do or do not, there is no try. And how many times we say, I'm going to try. The second you say that you're going to try, you open yourself for it might not work. Something as simple as I'm doing it, I might fail. It might not work. But when I go for it 150%. If I say I'm going to try, it's already half there. And it's funny because sometimes you listen to athletes. I go back to sports because I love sports and all the analogies I can make with that field. Sometimes you could feel that there is some arrogance in their mind in the way they express themselves. No, they are shooting themselves on confidence on a regular basis because they are as doubtful as we are. They are as trying as we are sometimes. They are as scared as we are and concerned about the fact that they might never come back. But the big difference between the one who are standing the course and at the end of their career becoming absolute icons, when you talk to them, they shoot themselves with a confidence shot every single day, and they talk about it. Because it's one thing to say, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. No, they even say it. And sometimes you could be perceived as, the guy who's always saying the best. But he is. He is at the end.
Yeah, if you adopt the mindset, there's no skill set without mindset, right? If you adopt the skill set and that mindset of a winner, you are much more likely to be a winner. I mean, it's basic psychology, I think. And interestingly, actually, recently I saw a firm who actually had a very high-profile senior person within it whose title was Director of Testing and Failure. Director of Testing and Failure. I mean, a very bold thing to say. But I think sometimes, quite often, we're reluctant to, in some ways, celebrate things that don't work as a healthy part of finding things that do work. For every great idea, there have been 10 ideas that didn't work, right?
That woman is in front of you right there. She's that person for NASA, SpaceX, all those type of different ventures.
Yeah.
You fail how many times before you win?
I fail most of the time, but when you win, it's way bigger of a reward.
Exactly.
Greater reward.
Exactly. But we have to have those failures to be able to have an opportunity to have the successes as well. And I think that's exactly what you said before. That is what holds us back, particularly as we get older. We get more worried about being a failure, and so we end up not testing new things, which could be, potentially fatal. And it's the same again with sport. If you try a new sport, you spend a lot of time not being very good at it to try and get good at it. So certainly when I tried skiing, I spent a lot of time on my posterior at the beginning. Moving on to another topic. As a guardian of a very big legacy brand like Audemars Piguet, and now you're focusing on a new brand, a new organization for looking towards the future. Do you think the truly iconic brands that the watch industry has, some of the best known luxury brand names on the planet, do you think that they are empowering the next generation with the opportunity for future storytelling? Or do you think they're just simply passing on the torch without letting the new people change the flame, so to speak?
No, I would look at them as examples, sometimes samples of things that we could actually do the way they did. But I would always be, if you look at them and say that you want to be exactly like them, you're already making a mistake. Because they have their own way of succeeding. They've not succeeded instantly either. When you go back in the history of all these major brands, they were not who they are today. Eventually, they grew their business to a level to be called iconic brands, whether it's watches, jewelry, fashion, or others. But at some point, as iconic as you are, you could go down in flames in 2 seconds. You want to talk about Kodak? You want to talk about major brands from the 80s and 90s that are not even relevant to today's world? Mm-hmm. Because some of them just thought they would never actually die. And they didn't see innovation the right way. They didn't look at the new world the right way, and they eventually are gone. So I always say, learn from the best, sure, but at the same time, create your own path and do what's right to become one day the iconic brand that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was also another interesting phrase that I saw that I really enjoyed, which is that bold creativity does take courage, but on the other side, the danger is actually in sameness and conformity and doing things the same way that we've always done them before. That's where the real danger is. Exactly, as Kodak proved, as Blockbuster Video proved in movies, as so many brands that have proved that by being too married to the past. And I think there's a huge temptation when you're running such powerful brands to be able to do that. Next question. A lot of leaders, and I know this is a topic that you feel very passionately about. When we get into this, this hugely uncertain environment that we're working in at the moment again, of all the global disruption, so much unpredictability, volatility, which has caused all sorts of opportunities but also difficulties for the watch industry. A lot of leaders can go into not just retreating into places that they feel safe, as we've just discussed about, but also they can go into the mode of tightening control, of trying to, part of that nervous reaction to it is to go, I must control everything. Do you feel that control can sometimes outperform trust? What is your thought on that in terms of how we should respond? What's going to happen next?
That's my explanation on control. The more you want to control things, the more risk you have actually to not see what's happening. And we see this in companies left and right. You know what's the biggest disease of the century? Emails. Let's do the test right now, live. How many of you get more than 50 emails a day? Raise your hand. How many of you get more than 100 emails a day? Raise your hand. Oof. Okay, now, and you can speak. How many of you in your own organizations, if you had to put a ratio of non-efficiency, okay, what would you give as that ratio on a weekly basis? 10%, 20%, 30%? Tell me. Inefficiencies in companies. Go ahead. What are we talking about? Don't be shy, it's filmed. Everybody will know what you said. Sorry? 30% inefficiency. I hope you... I want to know where you work, okay?
70%.
Someone said
70% over here.
7-0? Resign. Instantly. Okay. The norm, when we ask a question, is really roughly 20%. 20% of inefficiencies in an entity, it's 1 day of work. 1 day of work. And when we want to control and to be safe, we start with this beautiful thing called emails. You know, when you send the email to 15 or 17 different people, okay, people answer, got it, forward this email to 30 more people. I call these people in organizations the passengers. Seat 22E. You put them in meetings. Sometimes you put 16 people in the same room for a meeting. Only 3 will talk. And the people that didn't talk are supposed to go out of this meeting and tell others what they've heard. And if for whatever reason they didn't catch exactly the meaning of what the 3 people that were talking was about, your organization goes in 2 seconds. But I send my email, I'm safe. No, I send the email, you see? So now I push the hot potato towards somebody else. No one makes a decision anymore because no one wants to step and be in front of the line, to be at risk, to be judged, all those type of things. When you reach that level of in organizations, good luck. No matter what, it's going to go tougher and tougher. And I love people. I love the fact that in organizations, the truth can come from any level. It's not because you are an executive that you are the smartest one in the business. Most of the time, it's the exact opposite. The higher you go in organization, your role becomes less of a specialist, but much more of a coordinator. You have to actually embrace what people bring you as values and to make sure it's spread across the organization. And because of that, we have also to adjust a little bit where we are now, because this has become the biggest disease that we've seen in our organization till now. If out of the 50 or 100 emails a day, 8 or 10 are really valid, think about what you could do tomorrow. But guess what? And that will be end of the answer. That was a long answer, sorry. You are responsible as well, because you are also sending these emails.
I couldn't agree more with you, having worked for a lot of big American corporates where actually I was frequently probably getting 250 emails in a day. I mean, I say it just feels like trying to walk through treacle sometimes, that it's got like this ball and chain around your legs. I couldn't agree more. One of the things I was touching on in that last question as well was that question of trust. That again, that when things get difficult, leaders tend to control and they lose that sense of trust for their workforces. Can you see that happening in the watch industry at the moment? Is that something that worries you?
It doesn't worry me for the watch industry. Trust is the #1 quality and way of thinking that you have to play with every day with your people around you. Mm-hmm. You have to understand, in any organization, you will always have what I call the 5%, 6% of the people that will not behave the right way. They will always go sideways. They will take breaks and longer breaks. They will be sick most of the time. They will arrive late. They will go early. You will always have them in organizations. But you cannot impact and affect an organization based on these 5 to 6%. You have to actually reward and go with the 94, 95 other percent in the organization and trust them to do their job properly. The more you want to put controls, the more you actually stop the organization to live on its own, the more you it's not the right word, but disempower people.
Yeah.
So people don't take any ownership of anything anymore, and you slow down the system big time. How many people say, again, in an organization, that should have been done in 2 days? It has been 3 weeks, and we are still waiting for an answer. That's the thing. When trust is gone, you're dead. But you have to rely on the fact that people are good to start with. And the ones which are not good will not be good no matter what. Don't focus on them. Put your efforts on the good ones.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think also, in many ways as well, you've talked a little bit about the diversity of opinion as well, and respecting that diversity of opinion in an organization, because sometimes, particularly as leaders, there is a temptation to recruit people that are similar to what we are, right? And unfortunately, if you're trying to develop things for the future, if people look like us and sound like us and come from similar backgrounds to us, they're going to come up with similar ideas to what we do, which as a leader, sometimes in a way can be quite flattering to the ego, but it is not necessarily good for the company going forward. So that diversity of opinion is extremely important. I remember, I'll give you an example from film, when we were working on the Dark Knight trilogy, and I was working with Christopher Nolan. He was working on the Batmobile, and he wanted a car that looked totally unlike any other vehicle that has been in a film before. And you think about iconic film cars, you think of James Bond's Aston Martin or the DeLorean from Back to the Future. They're all great cars with lots of toys, but they're similar to other cars. And he wanted a car that looked totally different. And so he made sure that no one involved in that process had any experience of car design whatsoever. Do you think that sometimes that could be something for the watch industry as well, whereby we need people from outside, we need other influences, other people that challenge us and question us with different points of view to drive things forward?
You know, when I made the deal with Audemars Piguet and Jay-Z in 2005, you have to understand at that time, there was not a single chance to see the world of high-end watchmaking actually get married with the world of culture,
yeah,
and especially the world of hip-hop.
Yeah, very bold.
If people remember rap and hip-hop in the early 2000s, it was badass, big time. And to be able to cross that bridge and to say, but it's not because it's that we cannot do anything with that field, was a game changer.
Yeah.
Because if today, don't forget, for the people who understand, most of the people in the room tonight are wearing sneakers. Remember when you saw the first pair of sneakers in a store which was not called a Nike, an Adidas, a Puma, and became eventually a Louis Vuitton, a Balenciaga, a Gucci, all those type of brands. A sneaker in a luxury store, that's not 1990, that's after that. So you always have to go to new fields. And as I said before, I've got some people here on the front row where I've been working pretty much their entire career for SpaceX and NASA. And they have joined us on the venture of the Honorable Merchants. And I cannot wait to show the world what we are working on.
Well, it sounds very exciting. Is there anything else you can tell us about the Honorable Merchants
Thank you for your question. Next.
Okay. I'll take that as a no. With the clarity that comes from no longer being bound again by these operational constraints, you've got this new phase of your career, which we talked about. What long-standing watch or luxury conventions do you think are the ones that need the most urgent re-evaluation? What would be your top priorities? We've touched on this a little bit. Now I'm asking you to go into a little bit more specific.
I love to see some smiles in the room. Do me a favor, ask the question again, because the answer could be very, very controversial. So ask the question again to make sure everybody understands.
The short form was, which long-standing watch or luxury conventions do you think need the most urgent re-evaluation? What would be your priorities? And I think what we could do as well is that come back to this a little bit when we get into some questions.
I love this gentleman smiling, big face, big smile. Love that. Okay, so we're going back to my way of always going very bold. For a long, long time, I've been asking the organization of SIHH, who became Watches and Wonders, to evolve. Because there is that need to really look at it from a completely different angle. The clients have evolved, the brands have evolved, the innovation is different, the communication has changed as well, and it needs to have a real big reshuffle. The Sediki family, they've been in business for 75 years. So they can claim legacy, they can claim history, they can claim a lot of things like many other watch companies. Guess what? Watches and Wonders should actually learn a lot more from what the Sediki family are doing for the Dubai Watch Week, because for me this is a far more open mind, less pretentious, cool watch exhibition, and maybe that's today the best watch exhibition in the world. The Swiss people should learn from the people here, and I'm not paid to say this, to make it very clear, but I love the Sediki family, and I respect them to the utmost level, because what they've done for us is mind-blowing, and I want to thank them in front of everyone.
Maybe a quick round of applause. Well, thank you for that very nice and sincere voice of
Sure, but Watches
gratitude
and Wonders, someone's going to shoot me, I'm sure.
to our hosts. Do you think we've gone around the edges of this a little bit, but again, going back to some of the strength of some of the brands that exist within this industry, do you think sometimes that can be viewed almost as, how you would say in French, the menottes, the handcuffs, as opposed to an opportunity? Because it does bring all that legacy, puts a weight on our shoulders, right? And can lead to nervousness in some cases. I'm sure there was a lot of opposition to you going into the world of hip hop at the time. I'm sure there were people that thought it was a great idea. I'm sure there were people that also thought it may not be a good idea. I'm sure there are brands that have got involved with very controversial names in the hip hop and rap industry that have now, have recently got into a lot of trouble. So there were risks. There were risks associated with that. Do you think that weight of all that tradition and the power of those brands can sometimes be overpowering and crushing out convention within the industry?
As I said before, it's not because you feel the danger or you are risking or you don't want to risk anything and you're not going to get hurt. So when you associate yourself with names and people, you're always at risk, by the way. At risk, and the risk could be in terms of image. It could be also that if you sign with an athlete and you sign with the athletes thinking that you're going to be with him for 20 years or 10 years, and then he gets hurt and never comes back.
Yeah.
Basically, you bet on something and someone and it's gone. So that's a higher risk. When we partnered with the world of hip hop and Jay-Z in particular at that time, so the choice was the right one. Lucky enough, nothing happened in that respect. But I always say, you have to be able to challenge yourself on your own successes no matter what, because success is not a guarantee. Success is not eternal. And at some point, you could miss the boat. And I will always respect more the organizations and the iconic brands that will open their doors to possibilities than the ones standing on their laurels and sleeping on their laurels and say, we've always worked like this and we're going to keep working like this forever. The big difference that we're going to see in the coming years for the watch world and the luxury world in particular is, I think, for the last 20 years, we spent a lot of time and money on the outside of the experience, meaning building boutiques bigger than the others all the time, opening outstanding salons, all those type of things, spending huge amount of money in marketing, brands. I think it's time to go back to the number one luxury thing that every human being has. This direct connection. I'm going to just give you one example. A long, long time ago, in the United States, Audemars Piguet, we had a relationship with the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And Evelyn Lauder, from the Estée Lauder Group, was in charge of that foundation. Eventually, Evelyn died from cancer many years later, but that was something very dear to her. And we were partnering with her on a regular basis through her charity events. And at some point, 2004-05, one of my clients came to me one day to buy a watch, and I saw that he was really bad in terms of vibe. And he eventually told me that his sister was diagnosed with a specific type of breast cancer that was not really known to many doctors in the world. And sorry, because of that relationship that I had with the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, I called Evelyn Lauder, and she made a point of putting that woman in front of the right doctor outside of the US. It was actually in Germany, and he eventually saved her. That day, it was not about selling watches. It was not about promoting anything else but human connections. That guy, then since, we still talk to each other to this day, will be together forever. And it's not about just having worked or been dealing with Audemars Piguet or selling him 1, 2, or 3 watches. It was about that day, we changed each other's life because of the fact that we were just together listening to each other. That's the real luxury.
Yeah, and I think particularly that is a really, I think, relevant and contemporary thing that so many of us are dealing with, again, not just in watches, but in a wider context, as we've got generative AI and everybody's thinking about it, figuring out how to bring it into their businesses. And I think that what that brings into really sharp focus is what are the things that we can get generative AI to do, and what are the things that we as human beings need to use our skills for, which are so much as about what you've just discussed, the importance of relationships and connections and inspiring each other and those human beings. I call it sapience, the things that sapiens, we as human beings, are better at than artificial intelligence. And I think that stories like that are really, by building a community, by building a process of trust. I think also, by the way, on a psychological level, when we have a trust and a sense of connection with each other, it obviously performs us. You were talking about things that impact performance and feeling good. When we have that trust, obviously, our performance is so much stronger because we feel confident. And we get oxytocin into our heads, which is on a stronger level is the love drug. But that also affects, when you have that sense of bonding with other people, it really affects your intellectual performance as well, because you feel so much more at ease. So my very last question, because I want to move on to some time for questions.
I think, because we've got only 11 minutes left.
Okay, well let's do that then. I think it was more about the opportunities for the exciting opportunities for the future. Maybe we can use that to throw that open to the rest of the audience. So we have a few minutes left now with Francois-Henri. I would imagine there are probably a few questions that many of you would like to answer. And there is a gentleman right there who's got their hand up very quickly. I'll go to you, sir.
The answer is no.
I wanted to go back to something you mentioned near the start of the discussion around the Apple Watch and how it was sort of a boon rather than anything that turned out to be misfortune for the watch industry. But in the decade or so since the watch has launched, and as sort of the last hour was going on, I looked up these numbers to be sure about it. The FHS Swiss export numbers that have been published, production volumes have dropped by 50%. And yes, the export value has gone up, but the Swiss watch industry now is producing half as many watches as it did a decade ago. So when do these current trends where output is declining and there's this premiumization occurring, when do they become an existential threat to the industry, and what should the industry do about that?
There was a before and an after, obviously, of the Apple Watch and the smartwatches. There is no doubt. It has impacted drastically the Swiss watch industry in a major way. But look at it for a second. In the 1990s, Swatch rocked the world for a long, long time. And then eventually slowed down. The Apple Watch came around 2013, 14, 15, 16. The Swatch brand was not performing well. They were doing okay, not performing well. And suddenly, out of nowhere, they launched a watch in collaboration with Omega, and you saw queues again in front of the stores. Swiss watch company, okay? Not a very cheap one this time for what it was. And you saw kilometers of queues in front of stores on a regular basis. What does that mean? There is always a chance to do things differently. And you have to accept, and my answer to the question is, if you accept today that you've lost the war or the battle, stay home. Don't go out there. But there are always ways. And I'm a firm believer that in any price category, even though Apple today is the #1 seller of watches in the world, and by far, there are still many opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that industry, that thing happens to so many industries, doesn't it, as well? They were worried when artists were worried when the camera came along, that their trade would go away. No, they created impressionism instead. We were worried in movies when home video came along that it would kill the cinema, and we invented something else in its place. So it happens to all industries at all sorts of times. But that was a great question. Thank you. Over here, yes, madam. The lady in the blue shirt. Thank you.
Hello, François. Thank you so much for these inspiring words. Astrid Vintland from Miss Tweed.
I know who you are.
I think we want to take advantage of your experience, your wisdom, and also the fact that you've retreated a bit from, the corporate world. You've been outside of Audemars Piguet. You're in your own world plan now, and I would like us to use your kind of step back, because you've been out of the system, and now you're going to go back into it. And I'd like you to tell us, where do you think this industry, I'm talking about the watch, of course, industry, not the others, because I know that you want to invest in different areas, but here we're here to talk about watches. So I would really like to hear your thoughts about how do you see 2026, for example, in watchmaking? Do you think things are going to get better before, or they get worse before they get better? I know it's a crystal ball, and I know anything can fall, anything can happen, but I just would like to get your sixth sense on that. And then just second question, when are you going to tell us about your investment plans in watches? Thanks.
Okay, so the answer to the second question is soon enough. And the answer to the first question is, even the way you ask the question bothers me. I'm going to tell you why. Because you want to actually check boxes. Is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? Is it going to do white or is it going to do black? My answer to this would be, we're on a very challenging time. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. The world is shifting every single day. Okay, look at the US tariffs. 39% for Switzerland. Finally, we went back to something like 15%. So that's already a game changer on its own. And funny enough, people forgot, or have already forgotten, that not such a long ago it was 0%. So they've not only adjusted to 39, now they are to readjust to 15. And if anybody says something bad to Donald Trump, he might go to 45 tomorrow. So you never know where you stand. That's one. So when you are living in those type of time, don't try to check boxes. Do your best and focus on your own path and try, I shouldn't say that word, but move in the direction where you got to be different. If you keep doing what you normally do and don't look at innovation like a major opportunity, then you're in trouble. In big trouble. I see a huge shift in retail in the coming years. Huge. But that will be a completely different topic. Okay? Oui?
Good evening, Mr. Francois and Jason. I have 2 questions.
Normally we charge for 2 questions.
It's one for each one of you.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So my first one is, if you were launching a modern watch brand today, what rules of Swiss watchmaking would you break and which would you absolutely protect? That's one. And then the second one for Mr. Jason is luxury watch buyers are increasingly care about the narrative depth in watchmaking. What elements of the storytelling would you say create a lasting emotional connection? Because you also touched on connection and between a collector and a new brand. What would you say those elements create that lasting emotional connection?
Great. I'm going to let Francois-Henri go first.
Okay, so on the question, which I now forgot.
What rules? The first question is...
rules. I know,
yeah,
sure.
the rules of Swiss watchmaking,
Very
which
important
you
one.
break and which one
if
would
you
you
were launching a
absolutely
new
protect.
brand.
No,
Yeah.
and very important one. First of all, the Swiss made today, in my mind, is kind of a joke. Pam! I said it. We have not been protecting enough the know-how of the Swiss made for ages, and we actually gave up a lot on this too fast and in the worst possible way. And the biggest risk that the watchmaking industry is facing right now, if we lose few more suppliers, strategic suppliers from the Swiss watch world, and brands have to go out of the country to make their watches, now we're dead. Okay? So I will respect to the utmost level the fact that everything will be made in Switzerland. And I will go even further than that, but I cannot disclose what I will do. But I can tell you for a fact, we need to support the Swiss watchmaking industry from its supplier point of view, because if not, we're all of us at risk in a major way. If no how it goes, we're done. In Japan, there is something I really, truly love. Craft is protected. Sword makers, silk makers, all those type of things are protected by the government. So there are finances supposed to make sure that these people will not go anywhere. It's not good enough in Switzerland.
And to answer your second question very quickly, because I want to come to the gentleman at the back of the room as well. Storytelling is something, of course, that we in the movie industry build. Everything is built on storytelling. And I think it's really important in relation to something very important that Francois-Henri said earlier on, which is that facts, science, data, insight, hard stuff, NASA, all of these kind of stuff, if you present it to someone, will get someone to either agree or not agree with your position, depending on how good your argument is. If you tell a story, then they will commit, they will buy, they will actually act. And the reason for that is that storytelling gets feelings, and feelings make people act. On a very simple psychological level, if we make a decision, we think about it, we feel, and then we act. And that is why storytelling is so fundamentally important. And I think in storytelling in the watch industry is very similar to what we do in movies in many ways, which is that you want to give people a view of where the current situation and a view of where you can go in the future with this brand or with this watch or whatever it might be. How things can be different and taking them from one place to the next with a really amazing vision of what life could be like in the future. I hope that answers your question.
And providing that the story is real.
That in movies I can't guarantee. A lot of our stories are not real. I'm going to come to the gentleman at the back in the glasses.
Francois-Henri, in the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen lots of big brands, and even some smaller ones, do homages to their previous models. Do you think this is paying respect to their history or just being creatively lazy?
There you go.
It depends. Sometimes no, it depends. Sometimes it's not a matter of being lazy, but sometimes it matters and it shows something special that you want to reopen the doors from. And sometimes it's just like, yeah, it's cute, and you gotta go with it. Again, it's not a perfect science, and some brands will do it perfectly right, and some others will not do it as right. That's a part of looking back at your history.
So life is shades of grey.
Sorry?
Life is 50 shades of grey or even more.
I didn't get that, sorry.
It's like shades of grey.
It's not black and white. It's
Not black and white, it's grey.
But the world and and we are not black and white.
Very sadly, I think we are a little bit over time. If it's a very short question, we can do one more, then we'll have to wrap up.
We go 2 more and we go.
Okay, well, another one.
One here, one there.
Hi, just a quick question here. Something about pricing of watches. You know, with all the things that are going around, taxation. Where do you think that the prices, the way the watches are priced? Like, of course, there's an element of material. There's some storytelling. There is some heritage, cost. But at what point of time that you go beyond finishes and then you're just paying for labor?
Being what, sorry?
Paying
Like
for labour.
paying for labor. Like, where is that line where you say, okay, the finishes are great, the watch is robust, there is a certain element of cost for materials, but what is the point where the way the watches are priced, especially, say you talk about volume of watches being produced or the numbers being produced?
Okay. I get the question. Okay, you know what? At Audemars Piguet, I can talk about this because I've experienced the both sides of the coin. For many, many years, people were judging the watches being too expensive. And in life, you got to look at something and say, this is too expensive. And sometimes you got to look at something and say, the price is right. Being expensive is expensive compared to what? And at that time, people couldn't come to Le Brassus, and they couldn't come to experience the way watchmakers were working. And slowly but surely, you open the doors for people to come and to experience the work of these watchmakers. At the end of a visit from people, they were never questioning anymore the prices. Because when you see the way things are done, the time it takes to get the level to be able to make a complicated movement at Audemars Piguet, no one questions the price. You're going to start to question the price if you buy something for 100 and it's worth 20 the day after. Then it's expensive for nothing. But if you buy something for 100 and down the road it's going to be worth 100, 120, or 150, or eventually one day 200, then it was never expensive. So expensive is relative to what you actually get. But craftsmanship and time that it takes to develop mechanisms, especially on the high end, is an expensive way of doing it. It's costly because of the number of hours done by people.
One very last question. I'm afraid it's going to need to be a short one. There's a microphone coming for you.
Oh, well, I noticed that quite a large portion of the audience here listened to the previous speeches this afternoon, and it was about timelessness or eternity, whereas this one is about fresh eye. So it's quite interesting, or should I say provocative, to listen to lectures continuously. So, but anyway, my question is for Francois-Henri. A couple of years ago, we saw you are just going to retire and enjoy your life.
Retire? No.
No, well, okay. Well, anyway, so it's very interesting to know a little more about your new venture or adventures. But of course, you don't want to share much specific or details. But can you tell us the philosophy about the name of the Honorable Merchant Group?
Okay.
It's quite a mouthful,
Sure.
I have to say.
So I'm going to finish with only the 2 of the 5 major values of the Honorable Merchants, because I've been working now for 40 years in the world of luxury, but the world of business in general. And there are 2 things I really want to change and to see changing in the world of business today. One is a tree doesn't grow to the sky. We all know that sentence. And we have to stop thinking that growth is eternal. And I'm a firm believer that at some point, let's say a brand does 20 million in revenue, and it has 100 million in its engine. We got to take it to 100 million. It's going to take 3, 5, 7, 10, 12 years. It doesn't matter. But when you reach that level, if you want to keep the right balance, the soul of the brand, its DNA, the well-being of its people, then you have to agree that you will have reached a mature level, and you have to accept that your 10, 15, 20% growth will never be able to exist anymore. That's the number one thing. You have to stop pushing for more. The entire planet has been working on more for decades and decades. We need to work on better. The second thing is, I never want to let anyone from the organization, from the lowest level of an organization to the highest levels, on the sidewalk of value growth, which means the people that will work within the Honorable Merchant Group venture, every employee will have access to 2 times of the sharing of value growth. One, when there is profit, a part of the profit will be shared with the employees. And the second thing is, if a business is bought on a valuation of 100, and tomorrow it's sold or valuated at 500 million, on this 400 million, a big percentage will be again taken and shared with every employee. These 2 things alone are under the Honorable Merchant Group venture. I've got the dream, not the arrogance, but the dream to change the world of business that way. And eventually, I even told my wife and daughters, if I die tonight, carry the flag, because I know we're onto something big. We need to reassess the world of business.
With that, I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up. Thank you all very much for all of your questions. We've appreciated all of them. And François-Henri, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
it's
you,
a pleasure.
Jason. Thank you.
Thank you all.